As you'll have seen from the programme, Brett has both personal experience as a carer for a parent with mental illness, but also as a real champion for what it is that we can all do to support young people in this situation. So I'm really looking forward, Brett, to hearing your presentation.
I'm going to open with something honest, which is I've never done anything like this before, so my heart is about to explode out of my chest. I will be honest with you. So I grew up here, and I have been a carer since I was a very young age. It says on the programme 14 is when I got involved with the young carers, but I was involved for a short while before when I was much younger. I take care of my mother, who is mentally ill. She has bipolar disorder, which is a very severe thing and a very hard thing to live with someone that has it. It's a whole lot more complicated than that, so I'll just go through it. I grew up, and when I was very young, my parents got divorced through several different things. So when I was 4 or 5, my mother remarried, and that led also not just to having a parent with a mental disorder illness, but also that my mother ended up giving birth to 2 disabled children, severely, life limited, everything from being unable to swallow, from to blindness to epilepsy, just every condition you can imagine. Which meant that the catalysts of the mental illness and the physical illness within my family was very extreme. And a lot of that, for my childhood, took the focus off of me. The camera and the lights were always pointed at whether it be my mother's bipolar or the severe disabilities of my younger brothers. But the other children, my older brother, I have an older sister, I have a stepbrother, were honestly, for a lot of it, forgotten about other than by the Action for Children and the young carers. So a while later, years pass, and I stopped being as involved with Action for Children until I was 15, 16. My younger brother, his name's Marcel, his health deteriorated, and he was recognized that he was on his way out, that his time, which being life limited, was coming to an end. And that caused a breakdown and a dissolution of my parents' marriage, my stepfather and my mother. And it was a very, very bad divorce, to say the least. And all that time still, there were social workers involved with the family. Each of my younger brothers had their own social worker. There was a family therapist. And the most I ever got asked was, am I okay? Am I in any danger? Which the answer was, I'm okay, I'm not in danger. And that was it. That was me forgotten about. That was my case closed. I was safe, apparently. And then after the dissolution of my parents, with my mother and my stepfather's marriage, I ended up getting kicked out of the family home with my mother because the home was purposed specifically for my younger brothers and their conditions. And my life kind of fell apart as within the space of a month, I had ended up technically homeless, with a brother that had passed away, and my parents were no longer together in very, very quick succession. I stopped attending school. I ended up never going back. I ended up dropping out in 5th year, right before my GCSEs. I wasn't going to pass them anyway because of everything that was going on, because I wasn't studying. But at that point, I became involved with Action for Children again, and the young carers at the age of 16, turning 17, with a man called Darren. Darren was young, in his 20s, so it was really easy to look up to him as a role model, as an older brother figure, as someone that you could look up to and be like, that's where I want to go. I don't want to be this depressed young teenager anymore. Someone to look forward to, something that can be like something to work towards and to achieve. Darren, I would say, saved my life. As severely depressed and suicidal as I was, he was the only person that understood. As also a fellow young man, and not speaking to me in a formal suit and tie kind of way. He came to me and spoke to me like he was my friend. We would talk about things that we shared interest in and both had a passion for, whether it be similar music, which he grew up listening to, like rock and metal, like I did in my teenage years to cope with the situation, or video games or anything else that I was interested in. Being involved with that saved my life and put me back on a track towards understanding that destiny was in my hands and no one else's. I wasn't a victim of my situation. I was in control. I could change how the outcome was going to become. After that, I eventually went back to tech and I got my English and maths, which I did well. I would like to say that I'm academically gifted, but I couldn't tell you that. That would be for someone else to tell you. But I definitely have an interest in academics and to be well-spoken and intelligent. I mean, I did not prepare for this, I'll tell you the truth. I came in here with nothing, that I had no idea what I was going to say. I was going to get up and speak my mind because I wanted to speak from the heart and not from a piece of paper because I didn't want to read. Because if I start reading, I will lose every ounce of emotion that I have. So I'd rather speak from my experience. The young carers have done everything. I mean, they're the only people in my experience that recognize that I was part of this equation too, this massive equation that was bigger than anything that anyone could ever expect, that was beyond the therapists, it was beyond the social workers. Action for Children were the people that recognized that, hey, those kids that don't have physical disabilities, don't have a mental illness, are just as important as everyone else because they are in this situation too. It is not just a direct one-person situation. It is the entire family, it is the friends, it is the extended family are affected by things like this. And I'm still going forward today. That's why I took this opportunity to come and speak as someone that is actively a carer. I still care for my mum. I'm a full-time carer. It still faces difficulties in society, whether it be falling behind, not being given the opportunities that others are given by their parents. I mean, I didn't have a bank account until I was 20, so there's one example. I didn't have an ID until I was 19. And there's still a lot that has to be learned, has to be achieved. I'd say the biggest difficulty I'm facing in life right now is, especially with our current economic situation, that finances are just getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and the cost of living is getting more and more, whether it be your electricity going up, food prices going up, taxes getting worse on everything imaginable. And with my role, it's almost impossible to find a job. I'm a high school dropout that has their essential skills in their English and their maths, and I don't have the ability to do one of these crazy jobs where the rota changes every week, because if a change in my weekly schedule happens, that has to be accounted for in advance in a caring role. I don't have the same capacity to just be like, yeah, I can get up in the morning tomorrow and go to work. It has to be, I need to know a week in advance what my rota is, what I want to do. There's days where I'm going to be available and there's days where I'm not, and that's not respected or really understood. I'd also just like to say that for most of my life that the population of young carers, and especially young adult carers, is just almost seems to me like an invisible population, just people that aren't seen in society. I had peers that knew, they don't understand, they still don't. They don't understand because they haven't experienced it, they don't have that lived experience, nor are they academic professionals within the same area. So it is difficult, and it is nice to be recognized, but it's also to be recognized in a way that feels fair and feels like I'm being respected for the things that I've been through and not being looked down upon as a victim of the circumstances that I'm in. I got dealt an unfortunate hand of cards, and I'm going to play them as best as I can. And that's why I'm looking forward and trying to look up towards that bright side, keep that mindset of to manifest your own story, to build your own destiny, and not be a victim of the circumstances and the story that happened before you. And that's pretty much everything I have to say. I don't know how long I've been speaking for. I know it hasn't been long enough. Thank you.